Guten gardening, everybody. It is early April here in Zone 5, Wisconsin, and we're about to direct sow a couple of the vegetables, the cool weather vegetables that are okay to put in the ground at this time of year in Zone 5. Vegetables that can handle if the temperatures drop back down and we get another light frost, that type of thing. What we're looking for today is a temperature of about 40 degrees and hopefully rising for our soil. Our soil is definitely workable, so I'm going to show you the thermometer here. I'm also going to show you a place online that you can go to check your average soil temps. What I can tell you is that our temperatures are expected to be increasing into the 50s and 60s. Today's supposed to be about 55 degrees Fahrenheit. And we're looking at probably some pretty good warmer temperatures going forward. So I'd say now is a good time to go ahead and get these cool weather vegetables sown. So I'm not going to put any suspense out there as to the vegetables that I'm going to be sowing. I'm going to be putting some spinach, radishes, and I'm going to be putting some peas in the ground. Now, we did a video a couple of years ago where we talked about these early to sow vegetables, and at the time I think I went into pretty good detail as to what we typically do to our soil in terms of conditioning the soil and preparing it for this season. So I'm going to put a link to that video in the description. But I'm excited to be out here. I'm excited for these temperatures to start warming up. You know, if you look along our patio here, you don't see anything yet. But in a pretty short amount of time, these are going to be filled with vegetables. And so I'm excited for that aspect of our garden. I'm excited for this whole area to come to life. But for now, I'm going to be planting vegetables in our it's a 12-foot long raised bed with some trellising that works really well for our peas. I've got a whole bunch of different varieties to plant. And in this package, I have one really special variety of radish that was sent to us by one of our community members, actually a really long-time community member named Sabby. She sent this to us, and she said in her note to us that everybody should have something really fun to grow in their garden. And so we're going to be growing these radishes, and I'm going to show you what they are in just a little bit. Let's go ahead and get started with our plant. I've had my soil thermometer in the ground here for about 15 minutes, and it's reading at about 43 degrees, 42 degrees. And so that's 40 degrees plus. Let's go ahead and get started. Hey, check this out. We've dusted off our seeding square, and we're going to use that for the planting. I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. I think I actually say this every year when I get out here outside for the first time and I'm planting something outdoors. This feels so good. And if you don't garden, or if you've never gardened and you don't understand what I'm talking about, just getting my hands down into this soil, this mix, there's just something absolutely amazing about this. Now, this mix, as I said, this soil here in our raised bed, a mix that has been built over several years, but we've already gone ahead and fertilized it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my seeding square to get my spacing here. And because we're right up against this trellis that I've built on the back of this raised bed, then I want to put my peas up against that trellising so I can get those trellis so they don't fall over. So that's what we're doing right here. I'm going to have my peas in the first couple of rows here, so they're not too far from the back. And then in front of that is where I'll continue the planting. You can see, if you're a square foot gardener, how this would work really well for you. Now, the seeding square comes with a guide for the different spacing for various vegetables. And for peas, the recommendation is 9 per square foot, 9 plants per square foot, which is the yellow color. Now, there are 3 different varieties of peas that I'm going to be planting. Some Sugar Ann snap peas, some King Tut purple peas. I absolutely love those. And then right down here at the bottom, we've got some golden sweet peas. These are also really delicious. And so what I'm going to do with the peas here in terms of planting, I am going to use the yellow spacing. I don't think it necessarily has to be that wide, but that's what I'm going to do. The yellow spacing here, and then I'm going to offset it with the red here in the middle. That way I have a little bit of diagonal spacing for the trellising. All right, with the seeding square, we've got the little device that lets you capture the seeds, but it also gives you a depth measurement. And we want these to be about 3/4 of an inch to an inch in depth. What I typically do is just hold my thumb at the depth I want. So just hold my thumb right here, and then I don't go down any farther than that. And so that's what we got here. We got about 5 plants right here. And I'm going to start with the King Tut purple peas, and these are from Baker Creek Heirloom. We've gotten a lot of seeds and been very happy with those in the past, and I'm just going to drop it right down in the holes that I just made. And I'm going to do 2 squares worth of this variety. So same process, making sure this is nice and flush. Now these peas can handle that cooler weather, and as I said, our summers get anywhere, I mean the height of the summer, we're not as hot, we're not as hot as some growing zones, but 80, 90, 95 to 100, I mean we get some really warm temperatures once we get into that real hot part of summer. And because that's the case, and these particular vegetables don't like that, getting out here early, getting an early planting really helps a lot. All right, so I've got 2 rows. I need to go ahead and mark this. I'm going to show you how I'm going to mark it here in a second, but I'm going to go ahead and cover up this area as well. So we've got these down in there, an inch down. And one thing that I've made the mistake of in the past is not marking where I ended up in terms of this way, left to right. I've marked, but not necessarily coming out. So I want to keep an eye on that for what I'm planting in front. Now, until I go get my wax marker, I think the Sharpie will have to do. These are my King Tut peas. So I just made a little rock. I should probably do this. I'll put an arrow on it. King Tut's to the right. All right, next up I've got some golden peas. These are really, really nice. A beautiful color as well. I was just thinking that we had tomatoes growing in here last season. We've had them in the last couple of seasons, so I'm wondering what volunteers are going to sprout up in here. Because I know it won't just be the peas that are growing in here. That's going to be pretty evident pretty quickly. And I have already started quite a few different varieties of tomatoes that we're going to bring out here before too long. So I think that's something to keep in mind as well. Tell me about your experience when it comes to growing, sugar snap peas or peas in general. What do you think? Do you like them? Do you love them? I love the taste of, well, every single part of it, if I'm being honest. I know some folks who don't like the shell at all. They just want the peas inside, but I like every single part of it. So I'll eat the peas for sure, but I love that earthy taste of the shell, that real nice flavor. All right, I think 3 is good. 3 rows is good enough, so I'm going to go ahead and get these covered up. I'm going to do the same thing I did before. Get this part measured out as well. So again, we don't make a mistake in our planting for the next vegetables up. And we've got our little golden sweet rock down there. And finally here, I'm going to be planting some of these sugar and snap peas. Now, I got these, of all places, at the public library. They did a seed share at the public library. I think it's going to be easier to open this way. And so I got these. I have no idea how well they'll perform. It's the first year trying them out. But hey, I thought it was a really cool idea. Their goal was to provide these for free for folks to inspire them to try gardening. I think that's amazing. It's a great decision. And there just so happens to be 10 in here, which is the total number that I'm planning to plant. So I'm going to use one of these containers. I actually got 2 of them because we were allowed to take 2. And so there you go, 2 rows of these sugar snap peas. And I'm going to cover these up. I'll do the same thing as I've been doing. And all of our peas are planted. And I got to say, you might notice if you look at the coloration here that this soil looks nice and damp. Well, that's because when we got back from our spring break, and if you didn't watch that video, you should check out our spring break video. But when we got back, we had snow. We went from 80-degree days in Florida to a bunch of snow and then a whole bunch of rain. So we've had, I think we were low when it comes to the amount of rain that we had over the course of this winter, but we got a whole bunch of it back over the last couple of days. Well, the next thing I'm going to plant is that special seed, and it is actually a radish that we got from Sabby, but this looks pretty cool. Now let's take a look at it. It's called red rat's tail radish, and it takes about 50 days. But the purpose of this radish isn't the root. The purpose of this radish is the seed pods, because this produces, listen to this, crispy, crunchy, spicy seed pods that you pick at about 5 inches long. 5-inch seed pods. Now, we did a whole video on our radishes going to seed and how we could eat them. So we know you can eat the flowers, we know you can eat the seed pods, but this one you grow for the seed pod itself, and it's gonna be massive. I can't wait to see this. So we're gonna plant this up next to the trellises, because even though this doesn't say the height, typically whenever a radish goes to seed, it sprouts up there a little bit, and we don't want the wind to blow it over, so we're gonna put it up against the trellising as well. All right, let's go ahead and plant these radishes. Now for our radishes, we're gonna use the red circles, and we're only gonna go about a quarter, maybe a little bit more than a 1/4 inch in depth. We don't need to go as deep. And what I'm gonna do 2 rows, but I'm actually gonna do it just like this. And I'm gonna add in the blue right here. So I'm really going to maybe overseed this a little bit, but I'm so excited to see what this looks like when it grows. I've never even heard of a radish like this. Take a look at these seeds, all that potential in there. Seed pod potential. I imagine it's going to taste so good on a salad. Just that crunchiness, that spiciness. By the way, if you've never eaten the seed pod of a radish, that is something to behold. It definitely has the spiciness of the radish there. All right, there we go. So what's that? About 11 per square. That's what we've got here. 11 radish plants per square. And I'm going to do that just right across here a couple more times. Well, I'm hoping my microphone system is cutting out a lot of this wind. I guess I'll find that out whenever I'm putting the video together. But I've got a whole bunch of different varieties of radishes to grow. One of the things that I'll tell you, and I'm not going to show you the planting of the radishes any more than I've shown you now because I don't want to bore you. Although I hope you're enjoying watching me work in the garden. To me, that's a really cathartic experience. But I've got a whole bunch of different ones. Some of them, like the Japanese wasabi, didn't do so well for us last year. Some of them we didn't really plant last season, like the round black Spinach. And some of the varieties, like this daikon radish, we've done really well with in the past. I made a kakdugi recipe that's like a radish kimchi recipe out of these. They turn out really nice. So I'm going to give an area of the bed to that, but then a couple of the other varieties here, like an early scarlet globe, also from the library. This is about a 30-day, so we'll have some that take 30 to 40 days. It's one of the things that makes these radishes so nice, and we get them planted early. We'll have succession planting in here for sure, because we have tomatoes, we have sweet potatoes, etc., that we need to grow in these beds. So I'm going to go ahead and get these planted, and then I'll come back and I'll talk to you about the last thing we're planting, which is spinach. Now, spinach is a really interesting vegetable. I mean, it's so nutritious, of course. In the past, we've actually planted this ahead of time, started it indoors, and then transplanted it outdoors. But we can plant it directly as well. Now, I've got some bloomsdale spinach from the library. We've done pretty well with the bloomsdale longstanding. Actually, it's been one of our better ones. I'm going to be planting some of that. I've got some Teton hybrid as well. And one spinach I'm not going to be planting this year. It's not really a spinach, but I bring it up just about every year because of what we're dealing with, which is the strawberry spinach. If you haven't watched our video on strawberry spinach, you need to check it out. This is the most beautiful plant that you can't get rid of. All right, I'm going to go ahead and direct sow this in front of where we grew our peas. So I got all of our spinach is going to be right in front of where we grew our peas. Now, because of the size of this bed, I actually almost have a perfect fit for the square here for what's left to plant. And for our spinach, the recommendation from the seeding square anyway is in the yellow holes here. And we're going to give it about a 1/2 inch of depth here with the yellow hole. So we'll get 9 plants per square foot, and that'll give us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That'll give us about 90 plants of spinach over the course of the rest of this bed. So I think that's pretty good. This is from Gurney's, so I can supplement and keep growing with this. Again, I said this variety has done really well for us over the past couple of years. Well, as I finish up planting the spinach here, I should mention there is a bit of a disadvantage, if you want to call it that, for direct sowing spinach. And that is that you don't necessarily know that each of these is going to germinate. And when you start indoors and you're transplanting healthier plants. But I guess on the other hand, you're not adding that additional stress of the transplanting process is stressful anyway, and we found that spinach can be a little bit sensitive it doesn't really like to be moved around or touched too much. So that's something to note, something to keep in mind. Well, folks, this bed is now full of 3 different vegetables. We've got our peas, 3 different varieties, 1 variety of spinach, a whole bunch, and then our radishes. I tell you what, everything about being out here today feels fantastic. It's in the 50s. It's comfortable, it's relaxing. I'm so happy to dig my hands back into the soil out here. There's a bunch of other stuff going on out here too, by the way. It's not necessarily obvious, but I'm going to save that for a different video. We've got some garlic growing out here. We've got some chamomile growing out here. Chamomile never stops. We've got a lot going on out here, and I'm prepping for this season as well. And something else exciting happened just today, but you'll see a video on that soon as well. Hey, I hope you enjoy getting out here with me in the garden. It is a pleasure to be out here with you. Thank you so much for being a part of our community. Hey, if you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to give us a like, leave us a comment, remember to share and subscribe, and most importantly, remember, when you're with us, you are good to grow.